So, the definition of creativity that is deemed as generally acceptable is coming up with an idea which is both novel and useful, which means novelty and utility are the two very sacrosanct conditions of an idea. Minus these two, the idea is not considered as creative. For example, if I come up with an idea which is very novel, nobody has thought about that idea, such as a phone that is powered by your body's heat. That's a very novel concept. But in terms of utility, it may not have a very high utility, because you would not want to always keep the phone next to your body. You see, you would rather charge it away from your body than charge it at your body, correct? So, that is not a creative idea. Similarly, if I am talking of how do I use a stone to use as a door stopper, or how do I use a mobile as a paperweight. Now, these are fantastic ideas in terms of utility, because they indeed work, but they are not novel. So, once again there is no creativity, which means that if I look at both the conditions of novelty and utility, the bar of what is considered as a creative idea really goes up. Now, another very critical question that we have at hand is that, is creativity same as intelligence? And I think it is not true. Though creativity and intelligence are related, but creativity is not same as intelligence. It would also not be fair for me to say that highly creative people are highly intelligent and vice versa. So, what is intelligence? Now, in the world of artificial intelligence, it is very critical for us to understand what is natural intelligence, something that most of us have. Intelligence is essentially your ability to recognize and predict a pattern. That is intelligence. If you look at the most primitive form of intelligent species, and certainly we are not the only intelligent species, some of those primitive form of intelligent species, including our great ancestors, which were apes, all intelligence is about pattern recognition. There is a certain pattern. Now, if you are able to recognize the pattern and predict the pattern and behave as per a certain pattern, there is intelligence. And over a period of time, these patterns can evolve, which means your intelligence about things can grow. But that is where creativity comes in. So, if intelligence is your ability to identify and predict a pattern, creativity is the ability to break the pattern. Now, breaking the pattern is certainly not the easiest thing to do. I will just give you a simple task. If you are taking notes while you are watching this particular video and you have been writing with your dominant hand, for example, in my case my dominant hand is right hand, try to switch the pen and write with the left hand, just for an instance. Now, that is an example of breaking the pattern, and you would quickly realize that it is not very easy. Even though muscularly both the hands are equally fine, there is nothing lacking in your other hand, but because it is not trained to be used for writing purpose, it cannot suddenly start writing, correct? So, breaking the pattern is very difficult, and as humans our brain loves patterns. Given a chance, we would like to have the entire life as a set of patterns. And why do we love patterns? We love patterns because patterns reduce cognitive load. From morning till evening, everything that we are trying to do, we try to make a pattern out of it. Even out of randomness, we try to make patterns, much like the constellations in random scattering of stars. Now, we love patterns because patterns allow us to think of some higher order things. For example, if on a daily basis you have to really think on which side of the bed you have to wake up, how many brushes strokes, where to apply soap first on the body, how to put the buttons on your shirt, how to drive a car, how many steps to your office, obviously you will be choked mentally. So, what happens? All of that is at a level of pattern, also called as muscle memory. And the more you put things in patterns, it increases your efficiency, but it also makes you very mistake prone, extremely mistake prone, especially when the context changes. Now, I would not delve deeper into this, but if you are really interested on the aspect of patterns and how to break the patterns, I would strongly recommend you to read the book by Daniel Kahneman. The title is Thinking Fast and Slow, which I think is a phenomenal book in terms of identifying mental heuristics and biases. Okay, coming back to intelligence versus creativity. So, we understand that intelligence is your ability to identify and predict a pattern, whereas creativity is your ability to first of all break a pattern and then hopefully create something new out of it. Other way of looking at intelligence versus creativity is that intelligence is about convergent thinking, whereas creativity is about divergent thinking. J.P. Guilford, who has been one of the pioneering researchers in the space of behavioral psychology and also creativity, said that when we try to measure intelligence, we are essentially trying to measure your ability to come up with the right answer. For example, if I ask what is 5 into 5, there is only one right answer, which is 25, and that is called convergent thinking. In 25, there is no room for creativity. You see, when I am asking 5 plus 5, it's 10, 5 into 5, it is 25. There is no room for creativity here. But if I ask a slightly different question this time, that what are the ways in which you can use any two numbers to come up with 10? Suddenly you have a lot of possibilities. You can have 5 plus 5, 5 into 2, 10 divided by 1, 20 divided by 2. So technically you can have infinite possibilities, and that is called as divergent thinking. So convergent thinking is all about coming to the right answer. Divergent thinking is about looking at multiple possibilities. And guess what? Almost all of our education is primed at making us good at convergent thinking and not divergent thinking. If I take you back to your school days, what have your teacher been telling you? Your teacher has been telling a specific question and a specific answer, and you memorize the question and the answer. And when the exam comes, the teacher poses the question and you write the exact answer, and lo and behold, you get the marks. That is convergent thinking. Whereas in divergent thinking, a teacher can throw a spanner in the exam and ask you a random question, and what the teacher might be interested in asking is what is on the spot that you can come up with interesting answers. And the funny thing is that in the world of AI, where most of the so-called rudimentary intelligent tasks can be delegated to machines, we have to really put a premium on creativity, because you don't really need to know the table of 35. That's not required, but you need to be creative enough to understand where will a specific technique will be useful. So identifying the application area is creativity. Applying it can well be intelligence. Okay, so a lot of premium has to go on divergent thinking, and along the journey we'll also try to understand how to measure divergent thinking and how to hone divergent thinking. Similarly, intelligence is essentially about choice, which is or. You are given two options and you make the best option, much like chess. Okay, I am a chess player and I would give a lot of examples around chess as we go along the journey. So chess is an area which humans prided for the longest time to be uniquely ours, and then in 1997 we had this very landsliding event where IBM's Deep Blue was contested against the current world chess champion then, Garry Kasparov, and the results were for everyone to see that Garry Kasparov was defeated by Deep Blue. And that started the revolution of AI in the world of chess. Today, thanks to these engines which are available right on your cell phone, you can have millions of possible moves calculated in fraction of a second thanks to computation. But yet, we haven't lost interest in chess. So what chess does is that chess gives you the best move. So chess is saying that either you move this or you move that. That is intelligence. But beyond a certain level, when you are contesting at a grandmaster level, your intelligence is given. The person who has an ELO score of 2300 and you having a same 2300, not much of a difference in terms of intelligence. The difference comes in terms of creativity. And here is a book in order called Mind Master. So India's first Grandmaster Vishwanathan Anand recently wrote a book called Mind Master, where he talks about how after having reached his ultimate pinnacle in terms of chess, being a world Grandmaster, how did he improve his game thereafter? Because what happens in the world of chess is that once you have played a game of chess, it's available on YouTube, and all your moves are available on YouTube. So people who are watching you, they already know what are your moves. So when you're playing with them, you're almost playing naked. Now how do you beat somebody who has studied all your moves from internet? The only way you can beat the other person on a game of chess is by being creative and not just by banking on the intelligence. So in summary, intelligence and creativity are related. Intelligence is about convergent thinking, creativity is about divergent thinking. Intelligence is about pattern recognition, creativity is about pattern breaking and formation of new patterns. Intelligence is about or, creativity is about and. So when Vishwanathan Anand is being creative, he has to surprise the opponent and win the game. Now it's very easy to surprise the opponent and end up losing the game, or it's easy to stick to your game plan and not at all surprise the opponent and still end up losing the game. So before I move to the next piece, which is about how do you measure creativity, what is a critical question that often people ask me is that how is intelligence linked to creativity? Are more intelligent people more creative? Are more intelligent people less creative? Or there is no relationship whatsoever? Well, of course, there is a relationship, and the relationship is via this mediating variable which is called as latent inhibition. Now, what you see on the screen is a very fascinating figure, and this figure talks about how do we understand the relationship between creativity and IQ. IQ is a measure of intelligence, intelligence quotient. So, what is IQ? IQ is your mental age divided by your chronological age multiplied by 100. A typical IQ score for people is around 110, 120. If you are beyond 140, then of course you are considered as a genius. If you are below 90, then you are considered as mentally retarded, in the sense that your mental age hasn't kept pace with your chronological age. Anyways, so what does the figure say? The figure says that if somebody has a high IQ, that doesn't necessarily mean the person is having a high creativity. The creativity comes only when the inhibitions or the so-called latent inhibitions of the person is low. Now, what is latent inhibition? Latent inhibition is the stimulus that you have to a known phenomena or to a familiar phenomena. For example, generally speaking, if my latent inhibitions are low, I will not be thinking too much before throwing things. I will not be perturbed too much about what is the other person thinking of me, what's the other person saying about me, how will I be perceived, will I fail, etc. Whereas somebody who has a very high LI, very high latent inhibition, will be criticizing himself or herself before every single move. Because to be creative, one has to be open to failure. If you are trying something new, obviously you would fail, but it is not as bad as not trying, because at least you learn something on what's a good approach. And that is what Thomas Edison very famously said when he had attempted 10,000 times the filament of the bulb. And when people asked him that, haven't you failed 10,000 times? And he said that, no, I haven't, because there are 9,999 ways in which I know how it doesn't work, which itself is a phenomenal piece of knowledge. So, the summary is that while you have intelligence, which is taken care by your schooling and college and people like us, but what is very critical is creativity. And I think intelligence is a matter of aptitude and creativity is a matter of attitude. It's not so much about aptitude, it's about attitude, that can you throw caution to the wind? Can you take half chances in life? Can you just go about with a rough sketch plan instead of waiting for detail? And I think beyond a certain level, success truly doesn't depend upon IQ. IQ gets you into the office, but it is things like creativity, things like emotional intelligence that really help you win in the real long run. So I hope this stays with you. Thank you so much.